Veux-tu danser avec moi?
And today we're going to talk about how to navigate showing work in progress.
So my philosophy has become only show the client something complete in itself that they can respond to as is without too many caveats. So for me, a lot of times that might be like the script, because the script is sort of a complete thing in itself. Storyboards, most people get it. And then for the kind of animation we do style frames, and style frames is like as if you took a still from the final video. And that's one of the most crucial things usually for us in our sort of approval process, is getting that content and that flow locked in, and that final look is where the most kind of changes and aligning come in. And then usually, if the animation is good, everything moves well. There's not a ton of surprises generally at that phase. We do animatics for sure for ourselves internal, but one thing I've learned is in evaluating an animatic, which in animation, a lot of times it's kind of like a grayscale version of the 3D without textures or the final lighting, that a lot of times people can want to pick up the pace because when there's less information, it seems like it's moving too slowly. If someone just is kind of like, this is rough, can't always know to where they want to take it. So I just try and avoid that. And so like I can evaluate that for our own internal creativity, but it's a lot to ask of a client. If it was something that was like extremely difficult and complex to animate, where like certain key things of the timing was important to the client, we might make an exception then and show an animatic, but generally not. How do you think about this kind of stuff?
I think we take a slightly different approach, and part of that has to do with just around efficiencies, in terms of not getting too far ahead in the finishing stages of things before we've got approval on the rough side of things, because then you're working to do color correction on shots that may not make it into the final video. And then having a client on set with us is also super valuable. And if that's not possible, then we often will have our camera hooked up to a Zoom feed so that they can monitor remotely and see and hear exactly what we're capturing on set. So that on the day, if there's anything that feels out of place or off brand, that we can address that like immediately. But we will send a rough cut with the caveats saying, right now, we're really just looking at the story. Like, are these the right sound bites to be showing? Is this the right visuals? Color correction has not been done. Sound mix has not been done. So please do not pay attention to those things. Right now, pay attention to the content and the story. Are we hitting the timing right?
This is stuff that's worked for us, but we're presenting it in context because there's no one way or right thing for every situation. And I think this is a great one where the nature of what we do is different. On set already, like the actor is giving their real performance. They're in costume, they're in makeup, there's a set there. It's not a table read. And if you're sending a rough edit without color correction, like still all that stuff is baked in. And there's a lot of sort of parameters on what you can try. Like we did a project recently which was a little more editorial based, and I really like that. It's fun. You can really try things with the edit and be really back and forth, because there's such sort of like what was shot ultimately is what was shot. So that experimentation is kind of like sandboxed in. Animation in some ways, because anything is possible, but it's very rough and not the thing until it is the thing, I think maybe makes us approach it differently.
What we started doing, because I didn't think about it from the client perspective, they haven't heard from us until that Wednesday when it's due. And if it's, 11 a.m. and they're thinking, am I going to get it today or not? That causes a certain level of anxiety on their side that's completely avoidable. So we do these updates where a couple days before the rough cut is going to be delivered, we say, hey, things are on track. We're putting the finishing touches on now. You can expect the rough cut on Wednesday, and we will need feedback by Friday to keep in track with the schedule the work back schedule that we've developed.
And sometimes too, like, to just get a little flexibility in that schedule to make things better, my pulse update will just be like, look, things are on track. I can still show you what we promised in a week. Would it be an issue if we took a couple more days? Because I think I could really plus it even further. And that's kind of the version I'd like to show you. It takes the stress away from you. It takes the stress away from them. And it's making them feel in charge, right? You're giving them options, not just being like, hey, deal with this, right? Like to me, that's the essence of the pulse update, is it puts them in the driver's seat without them feeling the pressure, like they've got to be anticipating and sort of expending brain energy on the project management which you're trying to take care of.